Right, so in this video I'm going to show you how to create this kind of nice orange ochre wetland. So basically I'm calling it an ochre swamp because they're from Kruleboyz and they live in swamps, and I thought it's don't have to make everything just sort of a regular dull dried out swamp. So in order to do this I'm going to need some clay and my bases. Now, because I'm dealing with clay, I'm going to put a glove on because I hate getting glove out of my fingers. Clay out on my fingers. Horrible stuff when it dries. Right. So, best to work in batches when you're dealing with clay. So, basically then you can work faster. So here we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically just get the clay pushed into the bases in a nice pattern each time. Now I don't want it piled too high because then it'll be all harder to put my model onto it, and you know I have to push my model into the base later on. Okay, keep your finger wet as well while you're doing this, otherwise it'll kind of just not move smoothly. Okay, now I'm not overdoing my planning on this. Basically what I want to make sure is that the clay goes on there as smoothly as possible. But I don't want to overthink it, and to be quite honest I find that the natural kind of clumping creates the effects of, you know, where the water will sit anyway. Right, now what I need to do is I need to grab one of my miniatures. Now got to be careful because the clay will get all over them. It's a bit of a pain, but I make sure that I'm happy with the base position. Push him in. You can see that's how he's going to sit. Now with this guy, basically once you've decided what model goes into it, you're going to have to kind of hold it in place. Okay, basically that's where he's going to sit. And well, unfortunately it's air drying clay, so this is going to be a while it basically spends far too long drying. So that'll be a good few hours from now when I actually do the next part. In the meantime, I'm going to turn off my camera and I'm going to do the rest of them. Right, so look, a little while back I started doing this base, and I did sort of the process of putting the clay on. Now obviously it's a very long process leaving clay to dry, so what I'm doing next is I'm going to obviously start to effectively, let me show this, basically pretty much put this guy onto his base now, or onto a base. There's a problem when you're doing these, but there we go. So I even put footprints in, you know, to make out that different creatures were walking over it at different rates and everything. Anyway, so now that I've got that kind of structure in place, I'm going to start painting it and trying to get it a nice colouring. So I've got here Trollslayer Orange, Layer Dragon Bright, a yellow contrast, and some Dawn Yellow, which is nice faded. And I've also got this, and now the reason I'm using a pastel stick is because I want to create a chalky effect to it. I'm also going to add a water look effect later on using AK water gel, but that'll be more towards the end of this process. So I'm going to start off by doing a very kind of heavy layer. So get my Trollslayer Orange, and basically get this base coat down. Now I've always personally found with this that I'll frequently need quite, you know, more than a couple of coats to say the least. So you'll notice that this isn't going on thin, this. I'm actually getting it, wetting it a little bit, and then getting the layer down quickly. Now, the only problem is with painting a vase, and I've always found this, is pretty much asking for painted fingers far too often. So basically I'm just trying to get a nice layer all the way around it, just to get going. Unfortunately, with this kind of process, you're, you know, basically trying to just get the whole thing covered. Now, as well, when you're using clay, when it gets wet, it obviously, particularly if it's like non-baked clay, dry clay, it'll obviously re-wet and soak up a bit of the moisture from the paint as well. So that's a problem I've always found in using it. You know, you do a coat, you do a layer, it'll suck in, and then it'll look a bit faded. So, you know, it's not uncommon to do quite a few bases of this. Okay, so basically it's going to be a bit of a wait here for this layer to dry, and when that layer is dry I'm going to add another orange. Right, so I've let that dry a little bit, and obviously now I'm basically going to have to give it another coating. As you can see, as it's dried, it's kind of lost some of its colouring. Okay. Never really like painting the edge of bases. I always find it very streaky. That's no way to put it. Okay. And again, it's that process now where I have to wait for it to dry some more. Right, so now that's kind of still at just a slightly wet point, I'm going to then start adding in some of my other oranges and then building up to the yellow. Now, the idea with this is it's going to kind of create a watered effect in some little areas. Now, when I'm doing this, what I'm actually doing is I'm going to mix this orange at first, Fire Dragon, in with a bit of Troll Slayer that's on my wet palette. And I'm just going to place it at key points. basically I want to try and create my points where the water from the Ochre swamp is kind of trailing away. So obviously the character's going to stand in one location, and then I've had some other one of these walking along. The other thing I need to work out is where his foot is going to go here. So if his foot is going to go there, then I just again want to think about where that water is. And throughout, I'm trying to just think about how the water is pouring along basically as it goes. Now, okay, the next little bit is to quickly add a bit of my contrast while it's still wet. So that those layers are mixing together. Okay, there we go. And then now I'm just going to get my Dawn Yellow. I'm just going to quickly do the same. I'm just going to get a little bit of this again and make sure that it's just lightly mixing together. To create a feeling of disturbed sediments. Okay, and there we go. I'm starting to develop this very nice kind of watered effect. Now I need that to dry before I add the water gel effect. So it is going to kind of have to spend a while drying up. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to get some of this and I'm just going to break it. Now I'm going to get my brush and I'm going to get it wet. You can see how I'm letting that pigment mix into it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to start rolling that pigment around. And that's what's going to create that chalky effect. Now you'll find that there's a good chance that some of this will brush off at the end, but most of it will stay on. And can you see it's flattening out that orange colour now, making it look kind of bright and vibrant, but still creating a nice, it's got a lovely colour, but it now looks dry. Okay, and that's why I'm doing that. Now, obviously, it's going to take a little bit of time for that to dry, so I am going to have to leave it for a bit. I'm just going to try and add another bit of my orange around. Just obviously because I need to, while I'm waiting for things to dry off, just keep building up around the base itself, otherwise I'm not going to have a nice solid colour around the base. I'm going to have a right, okay. Right, I'm going to leave that for quite a bit now. I mean, literally, I'm going to have to leave that for a good 15 to 30 minutes just to dry out, so that when I start adding my transparent water gel, I get the effect that I'm looking for. Okay, so I've given that more than enough time to dry off now, and the next thing I'm going to use here is some AK water gel. So it's this stuff here, some transparent water. It's absolutely brilliant stuff. It also is a pain to open. There we go. Now, stuff like this, when you first have a look at it, it looks like PVA glue. It's not quite, but I'm pretty certain that if I spent a bit of time looking into it, it's probably made of similar stuff. The difference is that obviously, unlike PVA, it's more like, you know, it doesn't dry with like white clumps in it if you overdo it. Creates a nice glossy sheen. You can sculpt it as well as it's drying, so you can kind of create like watery uplift effects and all sorts. So we really like this stuff, and because it dries clear, it, you know, pronounces the paint underneath. So again, as I was showing you on this video, I had like little light areas to suggest the water has been pooling. So I want it to kind of come from wherever the foot's gone down, wherever we've got these kind of indents. Again, I want some on this side. So we're dealing with a swamp here. Now, although it's an ochre swamp, and therefore a bit drier than an average swamp, that beautiful flow of water needs maintaining. There we go. Now that's going to take a while to dry, but basically that is our final process. So obviously, you know, give it a good few hours, unfortunately. Okay, so what we've got there now is a beautifully vibrant orange base where you can see the water effect just shining off it. Obviously, if I wanted a denser water or more water, I'd just keep adding. Now, I will probably have to do a few more coats of orange around the rim of the base, but overall, this guy's ready now to just pop into his base. I'll have to glue him down, but you can see it starts to create these beautiful orange bases. You can tell I've gone a few more coats around the edge on this one. Yeah, but other than that, you know, we've got that beautiful, vibrant ochre swamp that I'm trying to build up for my Kruleboyz.